So we are back after the weather report. That's the most important part. In fact, when I was very young, I didn't really appreciate what weather report means. But imagine that you are a fisherman and you pay attention to the daily forecast. You would know that it will be rainy, it will be windy, and so on. There will be storm. And because they use canoes mostly, you would advise yourself that you wouldn't even go that far, because our naval service doesn't have the capacity to monitor the seafront from Aflao all the way to Disk Cove or Cape 3 Point. And if you also live in a flood-prone area, before you leave home this morning, assuming you know that there'll be floods, you can find a way of securing your property. So that's how important the weather report is.
I live in a flood-prone area. So
For you.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday I was discussing that I probably would have to pick some of my clothes and leave somewhere so that I don't have to. Please, you are smiling.
A beautiful girl like you.
Well, thanks to our good governance.
Living in flats.
To our and it's supposed to be a prime area, you know. It's filled with estates.
I hope you are not building on an unauthorized area.
No.
Okay. Well, that's how we want to welcome you this morning. This is Morning Update on TVXYZ and Wezo TV. This morning, there's a lot of conversation. The issue about the Rastafarians.
Yes.
They
said they prefer being called Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Yeah.
They say they prefer to go to court now because the GES has disappointed them. It's very, very controversial. I don't know which of the sides to belong to, but somebody who understands what education really means and how we impart knowledge, I would say that at this particular moment, the gentleman is traumatized. Even if he's accepted in the school, he could be an isolate. Some of the students may think along with their teachers because they could be influenced by the direction they are given.
And they will think it's favoritism.
And the student may not have the conducive environment to learn. And if he's not even lucky to have some of the teachers who may sympathize and try to counsel him and bring him out of that emotional trauma, it will be a waste for the student to be there. But on the other side, I said, look, who discovered America? Do you know?
Was it not? Oh Lord, I know his name is right here, but it's not coming.
All right. I wanted to say something. I'm also not too sure if my answer is right, so I won't say. But keep it. He took a voyage from one place to the other. He risked it. Sometimes you need one individual to break the ceiling, to change from a certain practice to what is seen as better. And maybe this boy, if things go well in his favor, will be the beginning of us looking or rethinking the way we do things.
You know, after finding out the reason why they keep their hair, I'm actually quite sympathetic to it, because apparently it was in relation to them not allowing themselves to be oppressed, which is during the colonial era where the slaves were being taken. So they not combing their hair or staying away from the comb was a form of resistance. So for them, the hair means a lot.
So they think that as we speak, we are still under that bondage.
No, but it's become a culture. It's become a religion. It's like people who fought for something, stood for something, still stand for something.
So if Achimota School were to be Abo Secondary School or Kubiase SHS, will GES have
come out
treated
to spoke
the issue this way?
Yeah.
In fact, we are living in a very funny country.
True. Yesterday, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah came out to say that what he said earlier, we shouldn't take that one. We should take what he was saying yesterday.
Yes.
So what?
In this world,
why are they knocking our heads together?
No problem. We'll be taking the business tips. When we come back, we'll delve into the issues. Welcome back. This is Morning Update on TVXYZ. It's now time to look at the headline stories in some of the newspapers we have at this moment. Abena.
Okay, so I'll start with the Ghanaian Times. On the front page, the story making the headline the most is father, son, and 2 others electrocuted. Now, I saw an interview with 2 witnesses yesterday where they were saying they called the police at the time the incident happened. They called fire service, they called ECG, and none of them responded or even came at the expected time. It took them 2 hours for the police to get there. And so then they were assuming that if these services had gotten there earlier or even picked up the phone call, some of the lives or all the lives could have been saved. Now, also, Achimota School rejects GES order to admit 2 Rastafari students, and 3 students on motorbike has been killed in an accident at Adaiso. Whereas the backstage of the Ghanaian Times also says that industry players support sanitation tax. Now, as we are on sanitation, I'll quickly like to share another story on the page 19 of the Ghanaian Times. It says that traders lament poor sanitary conditions at Tema Community 7 market, which is quite ironic because yesterday the marketers at Kumasi were fighting the KMA not to move them into a proper sanitary area. But here we are, the traders at Tema Community 7 are begging for such measures to be put in place. Again, back to the back page of the Ghanaian Times, it says make sign language examinable in health training institutions.
All right, so let me do the Daily Graphic. On its front page, at Achimota School dreadlocks, brouhaha, cut hair, conform to rules, school authorities insist. And it comes with the picture of the main administration block of Achimota School. And then shameful spectacle, cattle in city center. So that's it on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. The back page has issues to do with deforestation. And this one talks about illegal mining invading forest reserves in Upper West and Upper East. So that's it on the back page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. There's another interesting story on the center spread of the paper. It says service personnel advised to learn on the job. It's an interesting topic to me because these days people pass out from the various tertiary institutions, and at this age, either because they don't have the privilege and they can't even type. And you realize that in many of these institutions, you better learn on the job when you have some level of skills to be able to be shaped for you. So when you come and you can demonstrate that, the office manager may, if the person does not go the extra mile to give you the support, just leave you to hang on. If
we have this mentality, why were we giving the Minister for Aquaculture trouble when she said she will learn on the job? I understand.
Especially in this industry where I work. Imagine you come from GIJ. You are coming for internship. You can't even read properly compared to somebody in class 6 who can read and flow very well. You can't type. And so even if I want to encourage you, that is not where I'm coming to teach you how to type. Students in schools these days are not committing themselves to do something extra. So you'd realize that they pass out and it is a difficulty believing even some of the grades they showcase that this is what
because
I had.
It's true and poor.
That is the reality. They are focused on social media. They are focused on the European League. The argument centers on things that brings fun to the table. Very few demonstrate their readiness to learn. So they pass out and they don't even know what is happening in Ghana. I won't be surprised that somebody may be in a tertiary institution today and doesn't know who is perhaps the Minister for Education. You'll be surprised. Go back to the institutions and read about this. If you are concerned, please show interest. That's the Daily Graphic.
I saw my
and the
hometown.
Center spread, your hometown. Kwewu.
Yes, on the front page, right there.
Kwewu Easter on hold.
Coronavirus.
But by this time, you'll be
why will you do this to us?
Kwewu. I don't know whether you heard it.
Abeko Santana is the one who screams that a lot.
Yes, and unfortunately, last year they couldn't celebrate it.
And this year,
I know a lot of people have built hotels in those areas, built budget facilities, and they make money around this time.
Yes.
Last year they didn't celebrate it. This year they didn't celebrate it. and we are talking about COVID, is there a conscious effort to identify some of these people who may even be selling on daily basis and they cash in around this time? So all the investments that have gone to Kwewu because of how they have projected the Easter festivity over the years, around this time, somebody should be saying that the COVID-19 respite that government has packaged should be targeting these people. You know, always I make reference to the border areas. You can imagine the mothers who have survived in petty trading over the years because of the business across in and across the border. And here we are, almost 1 year plus. It's as normal for everybody. Nobody cares. And we continue to say, oh, COVID-19 relief package. It is not targeted. And for that reason, what are we doing? Just asking one group of Ghanaians to keep quiet and suffer, and then we pretend to be servicing others who perhaps don't even need some of these packages. But that's it in the center spread, page 16 of Daily Graphic, and I brought you the front and back pages. But let me do the Business and Financial Times, and I'll be fast here. Heightened risk to fiscal slippage, inflation hold policy rate again, and then presidency pay freeze imminent. I've seen a statement by the Ghana Federation of Labour making reference to the taxes introduced in the 2021 budget and saying that the National Tripartite Committee should meet with immediate effect and determine the minimum wage. TUC has already served notice that a no pay freeze policy won't be tolerated. I'll finish with the Business and Financial Times.
Well, we hope that whatever they say, they won't come back to say something else, because it's becoming the norm of the day. Now, on the front page of the Chronicle, it says that police beckon Burkina to unravel $209,000 gold heist. Also, commotion in Kwewu. Again, commotion in Kwewu, South Assembly over disappearance of 30,000 Ghana cedis, whereas NADMO director fires a shot across the bow.
I don't know. A lot of people don't know their hometowns. I won't believe if you tell me that you don't know Kwewu.
I do.
But if you do and you are proud of where you come from, I will be jealous and then want to subscribe with you. The people from this area know what wealth is.
Yes.
And they don't eat the wealth.
Yes, we invest.
It's almost like a competition. And that has improved the economy of the area by way of the real estate industry. Imagine all of us go back home and try to plow back the little we have been able to earn to develop the communities where we come from. At least it will change the face of the area. And so your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren would always love to go home because they are proud of where they come from.
I'm always proud saying I come from Kwewu.
I know a lot of Northness, especially, and then many people from the western north part of the country, where we admit that many of these communities are very deprived. But we have wealthy, prominent people from this area, and they don't want to go and develop their hometown. They spend the money in Accra, in Kumasi, and these areas continue to expand. And they turn around and complain that, oh, our area has been neglected for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But if all of us are doing what people in Kwewu, in Priosu, and so on are doing, I can tell you that it is not only government who expand this country by way of development. You and I can do that. Think about it. I will go home very soon. Please don't leave me here. You see, it's funny you would say that because there are no developments in certain areas, people don't want to even associate with where they come from. Because I used to have this friend, she's Ewe, and she was dating an Ashanti guy. And the guy kept saying that, look, me, Ashanti guy was dating her or she was?
Well, both of them were dating.
Okay.
So
men chase, women don't chase.
Oh, says who?
Go ahead. Have you chased before?
So this girl, the guy constantly, tells the girl that I'm not going to marry you because you are Ewe. And then this girl will say that, oh yeah, I know I'm Ewe, but I wasn't even born there and I don't know the place.
That is the mentality.
Yes.
That is the mentality. So be proud of where you come from. Go back there and help to improve the economy of that area. You can do it if you think I am talking to you directly. Daily Post on its front page. Bagbin issues ultimatum to MPs over Parliamentary Service Board. EIU not credible to predict 2024 elections winner. Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Peter Otukuno, has reacted to the latest report. So that's it on the front page of the Daily Post newspaper. So that's what I have.
That's
this
what you have. Then I have Daily Dispatch. It says NDC will find it tough without John Mahama in 2024 elections. Now also missing vehicles at national security. Colonel Opoku did nothing wrong. Lands Commission is making headlines this morning. Last week they made headlines. Today too they are. Now another sad story on the front page of the Inquisitor. Today is Sir John's birthday. As we all know, Sir John lost his life due to the pandemic we are facing now.
Yeah, I think plans are underway to finally lay him to rest.
Exactly. Also, it says here on chieftaincy issues where we have been talking about a lot, Aberatia Lily, Kojo Kese convicted of contempt of court. That's all I have.
So Wisdom will join us very soon with the news at 7.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome to AutoCheck Vehicle Diagnostic and Licensing Center.
I hear my car can be checked here without going to so many Accra.
Sure.
Check, auto checks, check, auto checks, check.
Emission, check.
Check, auto checks.
Alignment, check.
Auto checks, check, auto checks.
Brakes, check. Visit AutoChecks at Koforidua Aquadum Road for the roadworthiness of your vehicle, from saloon cars to heavy-duty industrial vehicles. Madam, your car is now ready for the road.
Thank you so much.
Auto checks.
Auto checks, check.
AutoChecks, your safety, our priority.
Check, auto checks.
Welcome back to the morning update on TV XYZ. This program, as always, is proudly brought to you by X Natural Mineral Water. If you're thinking of distributing, call the numbers 0596 273546 or 0596 273547 and we'll set you up for life. Wisdom Heather Jome is here with the news.
Today is your day.
Is
so
it?
Happy birthday and happy Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, today is Tuesday.
You've forgotten today is Tuesday. Wow, that's interesting. Well, I'll never forget Thursday when it comes.
Yeah, I know. What do you have for us this
morning? So I'll be telling you about the Achimota School. Well, so there's a new development. The Ghana Education Service has rescinded its decision. You know, earlier it says that you must admit a student. Now it says that do what you have to do. So I'll be telling you about that.
Surprised.
And then the Labour Federation, the Ghana Federation of Labour, they've also issued a statement to the Ministry of Trade and Industry calling for a tripartite meeting to discuss issues of salary. That issue is also on the table. I'll be telling you about that. And Ken Ofori-Atta, Finance Minister, he's finally back. People are saying that, look, this man was not well, budget is passed, and all of a sudden, he's gotten the strength to come to Ghana. I'll be telling you what the public is saying about that. And then also, The rumor again regarding the murder of a Nigerian in Aguna Kunyako. You remember that town in recent times we've had report of deaths and all of that. The baby that was buried alive. And
yes,
all.
yes.
That
yes.
same town, there's another development, and a Nigerian has been murdered, and it's linked to ritual killing. And the chief and the people in that area are very angry. I'll be telling you about this.
Take us away, Wisdom.
Grateful for your company on the Tuesday edition of News in Brief or Morning Update. Let's begin the stories from the education sector, where the Achimota School is calling the bluff of the Ghana Education Service and has issued a statement insisting the fresh student at the center of the controversy must cut their dreadlocks or seek admission elsewhere. Now, the school's decision, taken after a crunch meeting, is backed by the teacher unions.
It's now imagined that at least 2 first-year students admitted through the school placement system are involved. Last week, the controversy over the dreadlocks stoked public debate. Issues that dominated the discourse were Achimota School and its policy, the right of the child, abuse, and a GES directive or regulations which should supersede all. While some insisted that the school has not got the right to deny any poor student his right, others maintain that if that is granted, all manner of excuses could be adduced to abuse the education system. But over the weekend, Ghana Education Service instructed the headmistress of Achimota School to admit the fresh students whose admissions were withdrawn due to their dreadlocks. But the directive has been rejected by the school. This follows a crunch meeting by the school board in response of the GES orders. The school, one of the best in Ghana, says either the parents compromise and allow their children to take off their dreadlocks or go elsewhere for admission for their wards. A section of the public who spoke to our news team were worried about the development.
This dreadlock thing, I don't see anything wrong with that dreadlock issue, okay? Because that is the path both parents chose. And the kids who have decided to choose that path, there is nothing wrong with someone with dreadlocks. So I don't see the reason why the school should deny the kids access to their rights.
Rastafarian come with a whole lot of packages, as we know. Their way of dressing, and then their way of doing certain things, and they come with their food. Some of them go as far as what they eat. They don't eat everything, you understand. They be allowed in schools, have their own ways of doing their things.
Though the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Kwesi Opoku-Amankwa, insists Rastafarian students cannot be denied their rights, teacher unions seem to be supporting the Achimota School. The National Association of Graduate Teachers has backed the decision by the school. NAGRAT President Angel Kabonu, who addressed the news conference, said the exemptions would lead to a chaotic environment nationwide and demanded that GES rescind its directive.
That will lead to a chaotic school environment. Because of this, NAGRAT disagrees totally with the position of the management of the Ghana Education Service. And we are calling on the Ghana Education Service to redirect the headmistress and the staff of Achimota Senior High School to ensure that the rules and regulation of Achimota Senior High School, and indeed any other senior school, is abided by every student.
And that threat has been upheld, and the Ghana Education Service has rescinded its decision asking Achimota School to admit the student. We do also know that counsel for the student are seeking some interpretation in the court to understand why that decision was arrived at. Well, let's do some other stories now. And Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is back in Accra. Now, he spent nearly a month in the U.S. seeking medical treatment for what his office described as post-COVID-19 complications. Now, the minister is expected to notify the Appointment Committee of Parliament in the coming days for his vetting, but it's not clear how soon this will be because, per report, he's been asked to reduce his workload.
Sources monitored by TVXYZ indicated the Finance Minister designate Ken Ofori-Atta arrived from the U.S. last Saturday, barely 24 hours after Parliament approved the 2021 budget statement he should have presented if he had gone through the Appointments Committee and approved. He is said to have arrived via Delta Air and reported himself to President Nana Akufo-Addo. Mr. Ofori-Atta left Accra on the 14th of last month to the US for treatment of what was described as post-COVID-19 complications. Mr. Ofori-Atta, who many believe will have a tough time before the Appointments Committee, answering begging questions on shady deals, including the PDS, Ejapa and other government expenditure, had written to the Speaker for a 2-week grace period to treat himself. Not much was heard about him since, and government did not update the public on his status till he was heard last week defending the 2021 budget via Zoom at a forum organized by PricewaterhouseCoopers. He is now back. The timing of his arrival, barely 24 hours after the approval of the budget by Parliament, is raising eyebrows. Critics are suspicious, while others are calling for public sympathy because of the life-threatening sickness that may have influenced the decision to refer him abroad. After nearly 30 days at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, USA, where he received specialized treatment for post-COVID complications, TVXYZ News has learned doctors are advising that he reduces his workload to facilitate his recovery. He is expected to officially notify the Appointments Committee to fix time for his vetting. The 2021 budget was presented to Parliament by Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Majority Leader on his behalf.
Now, critics, however, are suspicious. Now, the timing of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, the public says the engagement, especially after rumors about his death and fears his condition could worsen, is stoking another debate. Now, a section of Ghanaians say the public must be sensitive to his plight, and but others also say since he manages the public purse, Parliament must ensure no ploy is adopted and that he does not escape proper grilling.
He has been through COVID and now he has recovered and is in town. Why not? I think it's a good celebration. Yeah, but I think he will be made to stand before the Appointment Committee to also answer some few questions with regarding to maybe what people think that he's trying to run away from, so that he will clear the air for everybody to be okay.
He needs to give us some explanation, and understand about his job. What happened there, because there are so many allegations laying down about him. So if he knows that, yes, he's innocent and he did a good job, a transparent job, I think that, yes, he should give some explanation so that people will be satisfied with his job and himself will be free from them see. Yeah, so that's, I think that every Ghanaian would like to hear from him also.
It's like a TV show, because I thought, he wouldn't even come back again. But all of a sudden, it's like a miracle. But everybody, it's obvious, everybody will know his mind. It's just because of just one single thing. Because, it's a planned agenda. That is why he's in. And if I can use your medium to, advise or tell the parliamentarians, if all of them can open their eyes and see what he has brought back, they shouldn't allow him at all. He's just there for that fictitious deal, that Ejapa deal. That is the main reason why he's back into the parliament. But I'm even wondering whether he will even be accepted to go through the vetting procedures. That's all I can say. They should just.
And away from that, let's turn attention to Parliament, and those who predicted NDC MP's threat to reject the 2021 budget was empty had their day last Friday after the House, in a 137 to 134 vote, approved the 2021 budget. This is raising concerns about the ability of Parliament through the minority group to check the executive. Here is a desk report.
The summary of the constituency collation is that Joseph Kuma McKay of NPP had 13,100 votes. Kwame Tumasi Ampofe of NDC had 13,116.
Senate West results finally declared in favor of the NDC, rekindling hope of more to come. Techiman South in particular was next on their agenda, but it will later become clear that the EC was not interested, at least in that dispute, and had ordered staff to proceed on leave. It meant not before the swearing in of the 8th Parliament. The drama continued and NDC MPs occupied the majority side of the House, defying all odds to secure their own. Alban Sumani Bagbin, as Speaker of Parliament. NDC MPs, after celebrating Bagbin's win, traded off a potential nominee from their side for Andrew Esiama Amwako, a die-hard NPP MP who was re-elected now as an independent candidate as the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, raising eyebrows.
The Constitution says that two people could not come, the two deputies could not come from the same part of the House. So being independent, technically, yes, it's not MPP, even though blood, soul, training, and upbringing, it's all MPP.
They were just trying to approach me to see the need of being on their side. But I told them, I was frank with them, that my constituent who sent me here and who are sending me here have told me that in spite of all what has happened with my party, they still want me to be with MPP.
But the NDC defended the move, describing it as strategic. The rhetoric then was, when there is a tie, Alban Bagbin cooled, and the emphasis then was he will step aside and NDC's game of chess will come into play. So far, NDC has not been able to execute their plan. The first blow was MP for Boku Central, Mahama Yarege's motion asking government to absorb fees of tertiary students, which fell flat. NDC MPs attempted an explanation. Listen to Mahama Ayarega.
Clearly, they were in absolute majority and they were clearly determined, the NPP side was clearly determined that no student should be assisted. Every student should go and pay their fees. In fact, the issue was that even the speaker realized that the minority members were not in the House in their numbers because there's a new policy that all of us should not come to the chamber at the same time. You could see from the chamber that the NDC members were not many. So the speaker even considered deferring the vote.
Next was the vetting and the unanimous approvals, which provoked angry reactions from the grassroots base of the party and threats against the minority MPs. They have since apologized, at least in two separate statements, admitting flaws and making reassurances. Last week, the minority served another strong notice after openly condemning the 2021 budget, insisting the figures are cooked and threatened to vote against it.
And therefore, we will take some major position as the equal opposition of 137 tomorrow if our demands are not respected, particularly correcting the fiscal deficit numbers and reporting accurately. Again,
all MPP MPs were present at the time of voting. NDC demonstrated its wish, but could only pull 134 votes against MPP's 137. The minority says 3 of their MPs are sick and were absent. In all these crucial votes, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, was in his seat. The question now bothering many is if the NDC indeed can cause a stir in Parliament as it did on January 6, and whether or not the expectations of civil society, governance think tanks, the party supporters for some effort to stop the abuse of power by the executive will ever happen. For now, NPP has had its way in Parliament. Just brace yourself as government gets set to implement the budget.
And it's early days yet. Let's hope and see how that pans out in the coming years. Now, barely 2 days, I should say, after the Trade Union Congress served a strong notice, it will not countenance narrative from government that workers may not receive any significant increase in salaries, the Ghana Federation of Labour has issued, saying GFL, in a statement issued yesterday, set clear conditions that should inform any tripartite meeting on the minimum wage for the year. Now, Secretary General of the Federation of Labour, Abraham Kumsing, who signed the notice, made reference to the 7 taxes in the 2021 budget, namely COVID-19 health levy, road toll increase, sanitation and population, otherwise known as BOLA tax, 1% increase on national health insurance levy, 1% increase in the value-added tax flat rate, Energy Sector Levy Act, which will see a 20% charge per litre of fuel, and finance sector cleanup levy of 5%. Abraham Kumsin said, in view of the anticipated hardship if the taxes take effect, the Minister for Employment must convene an emergency national tripartite committee meeting to discuss wages and salaries to cushion the already suffering workers. Now to another disturbing story, and this is about the murder cases in the Gomoa areas of the central region believed to be linked to rituals. Now the latest involved a Nigerian stabbed severally in the neck and left dead in his room in the middle of the night. Nana Apia Teria of our sister station Power FM was there for TVXYZ News.
A 30-year-old Nigerian, popularly known as God's Power Ada, was found dead, lying prostrate in a pool of blood in his room at Gomoa Bantama in the central region. Neighbors suspect foul play, and some believe he may have been murdered for rituals. He was reportedly living in the house with 2 other friends, and it is not immediately clear if the police is treating them as key suspects. The body has since been moved to the police hospital mortuary for autopsy while investigations continue. The news has angered Nigerians in the area, but some believe the actors could be from within. Leader of the Nigerian community in Gomoa Bantama, Chief Kesentin Olado, spoke to TVXYZ.
What happened is very disheartening. Like I said, it's a brutal murder. And we are trying to get the culprits and the perpetrators of this act. What I want to advise is to remain calm. And please, Nigerians, especially in Gomoa Bantama, please, we should learn to live in peace. And this kind of issue should not happen again. Not in our environment, not in our community.
The news is creating uneasiness in the Gomoa area following the recent spate of murders. The chief of Gomoa Bantama, Okunfrebo Nana Akwesi Amwane, described the incident as unfortunate. He wants the police to bring the perpetrators to book. He spoke in Akan.
So mu se bia mu konto ko wadan mu so mu ye gidigidi bi wo fie omo ma na ne kusa mu nyo de kan maso nti afesu Nigeria fu bia mu wo fie bia omo tititi miamia wo menonom city ano mama mrantire de womani edo machi because sometimes no beti no ye bekana e bia fie bia Nigeria fu omo konto kwa o e bia obakorom se ye di agro.
Meanwhile, the Kaswa Divisional Police Command is investigating the incident.
A very sad development there. We apologize for disturbing your screens this morning with those gory pictures. Now, before I go, the Ghana Water Company is urging the public, particularly those privileged to have their taps flowing, to place value on the commodity which is fast becoming scarce. Now, Director of Public Affairs Stanley Mate tells TVXYZ News, while government continues to make investment, the threat levels to water bodies and the high cost of production calls for collective effort to guarantee sustained access. Mr. Mate said presently GWCL is forced to ration water because rivers are drying up, while Galamsey activities have made matters worse.
Water. But we are more managing the water resource very well. So it's one of the challenges. The other challenge is the fact that we have our treatment plants, but we are unable to treat enough water for the people. Now, the water resources is available. We are not managing it well. For instance, all our water bodies in the country are polluted. Okay? Some of them are silted. So we are unable to get enough volumes, especially during the dry season, to abstract for treatment. So then we are forced to ration. So the treatment plant is there, but we are unable to abstract enough for treatment. Okay. Now the other aspect is that the treatment plant has a bigger capacity or enough capacity to treat, but the volume of water is not. The resource isn't available.
Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Water Company Limited, Stanley Marty, ending this morning's edition of News in Brief or Morning Updates here on TVXYZ. As always, do log on to www.myxyzonline.com for more stories and updates here at the newsroom. And then also, Nana Abena continues with the rest of Morning Updates. It's Tuesday.
And it's my day. Thank you, Wisdom Head Jome. We'll take our tidbits and we'll be right back.
Peace of mind is very essential in your journey to success. For Akwesi Papa, peace of mind means having a proper covering over his family. Literally. For Araba, aka Injection Mama, it's about having the funds to complete her advanced nursing course. And as for Corporal Odami, it's as simple as reporting on time for his shifts. Sometimes all you need is a simple push. At Needs Microfinance, we have tailor-made loan packages for salaried workers under the Controller General's Department. With the low interest rate and quick wahala-free process, you are guaranteed of a timely solution to get back that peace of mind, literally in 30 minutes. Needs Microfinance. Growing with you.
There's been a public uproar on 2 Rastafari students who have been rejected admission at the Achimota school. Now, before we delve into a lot of things, we went onto the street to take opinions of some Ghanaians with regards to this issue. Let's listen and we'll continue this conversation.
It comes with a whole lot of packages, as we know. Their way of dressing, and then their way of doing certain things, and they come with their food. Some of them go as far as what they eat. They don't eat everything, you understand. They be allowed in schools, have their own ways of doing their things. Well, in some school they can be allowed, but they even for them to be allowed to the school ground, they will have to shave their head down and look like a normal people. You understand? When they I can even tell you that some people fear the dreadlocks.
With this dreadlock thing, I don't see anything wrong with that dreadlock issue, okay? Because that is the part both parents chose. And the kids who have decided to choose that part, there is nothing wrong with someone with dreadlocks. So I don't see the reason why the school should deny the kids access to their rights. It's against their right self. It's against human rights. Okay, if someone has dread doesn't mean the person is a devil or the person is a criminal or something like that. Though we should just take that mindset off.
Dreadlock is not about criminal. It's about your lifestyle, how you live and how you comport yourself. Because I've done a dreadlock for so many years and I'll be cutting it. I'm not a criminal, I'm a footballer. So why are they talking about the student that is a bad boy or he should not come to the school? It's a bad issue.
Yeah, so you heard some of the views of people on the streets. Now, also yesterday, I did see that NAGRAT President Angel Kabonu also had opinion, very strong opinion about this issue. Let's take a listen.
Headmistress and the staff of Achimota did not deny the young man admission. They rather spelled out to the young man the rules and regulations of Achimota Senior High School. We cannot begin this day to start making exemptions for individual students based on their beliefs, based on their culture, based on their tradition, and based on many other issues. That will lead to a chaotic school environment. Because of this, NAGRAT disagrees totally with the position of the management of the Ghana Education Service. And we are calling on the Ghana Education Service to redirect the headmistress and the staff of Achimota Senior High School to ensure that the rules and regulation of Achimota Senior High School, and indeed any other senior school, is abided by every student. Let me repeat that we are calling on the Director General and the management of Ghana Education Service to redirect the management of Achimota Senior High School to ensure that the school, the students, and indeed everybody abide by the rules and regulation of the school. We are also calling on parents to know that every school has its own rules and regulation, and they should read the rules and regulations of each school before they allow their children to apply to those schools. Now, people are talking about human rights. Let me inform everybody that human rights is better ensured in an environment of rules and regulation.
Yes, so you saw how passionate Nagrat was about the issue, specifically Angel Kabonu. Now, it looks like the GES took what he said to heart, and so they have come out to say that even though we supported the claims earlier, it was just to quell the uproar that was going on with citizens. So we have decided to side with the headmistress of Achimota, and for that matter, the students should not be allowed into the school unless they go by the rules and regulations. There's a lot going on. So now a lot of people are asking, why then the GES take a stand? Why didn't they just come out to say that, we will discuss the issue further, we will take it from one step to another, but rather stand with one opinion? Because the issue is that there were two different opinions. There were some that were saying that, look, the school has rules and regulations, and so we should follow. But then there are others that were also of the view that people have traditions, cultures that they follow, and so sometimes we have to make exceptions. So why do you take a stand and then come back to say that you have changed the decision that you have taken? A lot has been said, a lot has been ongoing. Yesterday I had a conversation with an old student, and she was even telling me that there were times where foreigners were allowed to cut their hair to the shoulder level if they were day students. So then again, it comes down to, are they being favoritism? Are they trying to ostracize the children? But also others are of the view that if the children are allowed into the school, they may be ostracized by other students who side with this decision. Well, I can only sit here and say people's opinions, or maybe spread out my opinion as well. We have decided to talk to Bright Appiah. He's Executive Director at Charles Wright International, but at the moment his line is very busy because this is a hot issue and a lot of the media houses are discussing. But we are still trying to get in touch with him. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back and we've gotten him, we will speak to him.
We are one man short. Should we invite him?
Yeah.
It be old cargo. Can I join you guys?
Yeah.
Always drink fresh, natural, eggs, mineral, water.
You still got it. Always keep hydrated naturally. That's my secret.
Manufactured with the primary aim of preserving nature's finest minerals necessary for a healthy mind and body. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome back to the morning update. Now, before the break, we were discussing there are 2 Rastafari students that have been rejected by the Achimota school because of their dreadlocks. Like I said or indicated earlier, a lot of opinions have been thrown out there, but specifically it's been 2 opinions, as some are in support of what Achimota school has issued out, and others are also against it because then they believe that people's beliefs must be respected. But the Muslims are also saying they do not allow, or schools do not allow their students to put on the mayafi as they would want, except when they are going to pray. And so, yeah, a lot has been said, but I do not again want to bore you. I have Ras Mubarak on the line. He also supported, actually did not support Achimota school not admitting the students because of that. He said that it was in breach of Article 28, Clause 3. He's on the line, and I will be talking to him. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Right. Now, for the sake of my viewers, what is your take again on this issue? Again, because of recent issues where people or public institutions make claims and come back to, reverse on those claims. Do you still stand by what you said earlier?
Well, first of all, it's unfortunate that the Ghana Education Service seems not to make up its mind on this particular issue. The Ghana Education Service is basically the regulator of schools, and if it had given, a directive, the school had no option than to obey those directives. And it's unfortunate that the GES is capitulating, is reversing, is buckling under pressure to sanction the headmistress of the school. This whole thing is a violation of the rights of those 2 Rasta kids. If you look at the various provisions of the Constitution, you can read Article 21C, which guarantees the freedom to practice any religion and to manifest such practice. You can also make reference to Article 26(1) of the Constitution, which gives every Ghanaian, an entitlement to enjoy, to practice, to profess, to maintain, and to promote their culture, language, tradition, religion, and so on. If you go further, you can read Article 28(4), which says that no child shall be deprived of any other, no child shall be deprived by any other person of medical treatment, education, or any other social or economic benefit by reason only of religion or other beliefs. So clearly, the Constitution makes ample provisions, in the protections of the rights of Ghanaians, especially for a child who's had aggregate 6 and the other 10. That they would be defined by what is on their hair is very, very unfortunate. And I think that the minister's intervention in this particular issue is something that would be most welcome. I know the director of GS is meeting the Committee of Education of Parliament today. Hopefully, it should be one of those things that they'll be discussing. And we have to bring a finality to these acts of discrimination, where be it Rasta kids, be it Muslim kids with hijab, be it SDA kids who are not wearing earrings. Every now and then you see one form of discrimination or the other. We must not and should not be entertaining and tolerating such, acts of discrimination, especially when it comes to children, especially when it comes to a child's freedom, which is guaranteed by the Constitution to enjoy education, and for an institution that is as prestigious as Achimota School, I think that they want to define people's characters by their religion is very unfortunate.
That you are being a bit biased with the situation because you had dreadlocks before, and that is why you are supporting this claim.
It's not because I had dreadlocks before. I had dreadlocks because of things like this. As a staff of GBC, when I was employed at GBC, I didn't have dreadlocks. But I kept hearing and seeing incidences of discrimination.
Right.
And I decided to put on my dreadlocks as a symbol of defiance, to these kinds of the situations. Because I was waiting to see who was going to come to me and say they were going to sack me because of my dreadlocks.
Right.
Every now and then people get discriminated. Be it at the workplace, you see Muslim women at the workplace being forced not to wear their hijab and the rest of it. We can't build a society where we are promoting these backward, attitude towards education, towards our culture, and towards our lifestyle. In any case, it is okay for the headmistress of that school to wear a Peruvian or a Brazilian hair. That is how mentally enslaved, some people in this country are.
So, but the issue is with the fact that there are rules and regulations, and Nagrat is saying that these things are out there. So the parents knew. Why did they allow their children to choose the school when they knew that they would have to take their hair off?
You should know more than anyone as a presenter that the Constitution is the supreme law of the
state, yes.
And that every regulation, every law, every bylaw, every rule cannot be at variance with the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The Constitution is supreme. So if they have rules that are at variance, that are in collusion with the tenets of the Constitution, those rules are null and void in the face of the Constitution.
But then, don't you think that even with the Constitution, there are times where we make certain exceptions if we realize that it would cause chaos? Because don't you think that if the school allows this to go on, other minority groups would also start fighting for their rights?
But isn't it what makes constitutional democracy exciting? That once we all agree that we would abide by the Constitution, we stick to it. If we think that there's something wrong with the Constitution, we know what to do. But insofar as the Constitution of the Republic guarantees the freedoms to practice and to manifest my religion, practice and to manifest my language, my culture, I can't be discriminated against for the purposes of education or medical treatment or employment purposes because of religion or a culture or, a tradition. That clearly is a violation of the Constitution. And we must begin to learn to respect the document that we have also decided that this is how we want to progress our country. If we don't like constitutional democracy, we should say so. But insofar as we have agreed that this is the path that we are charting for ourselves, we have to respect the Constitution. And nobody can approbate and reprobate unto themselves the right to obey one group of laws and not obey, some other laws in the Constitution.
So you're saying that,
and I find it very unfortunate that these things even have psychological effects on the minds, of these two kids, who've been discriminated against. Read Article 28(3) of the Constitution, that a child shall not be subjected to torture or any cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. What they are doing is inhumane. What they are is degrading. They are humiliating those kids. And that treatment can have psychological effects. It can have effects on the psyche of the kid to learn, And we should judge those kids by their ability to undertake academic studies more than, what is on their head. In any case, if they are in school with dreadlocks, what destruction would it cause?
Now,
if an SDA child goes to school without an earring, what destruction would it cause? Because not wearing an earring is a manifestation of the child's religion.
But then there's also the school of thought that believe that children don't, at this stage, they don't really know what they're doing. So it's parents who are instilling certain values into them. So this is more about the parents and not even about the children.
You should read Prince Act again in the Constitution. The whole of chapter 28 of the Constitution and 29 of the Constitution is dedicated to the promotion of the rights of children. Read the Constitution properly. It is dedicated. As a matter of fact, Article 28, what I just quoted to you, 28.3 and 28.4, children's rights under the Constitution. So the fact that they are children doesn't mean they don't have rights. And that is why the Constitution have made provisions to protect their rights as children. Would you say because they are children, we shouldn't respect their rights?
Right.
So insofar as they are not adults, when they are children, yes, they have to abide by, some are born into it, some would learn the religion of their parents. They can take their own decisions when they are 18. From 18 on, they are adults. But until they are 18, the parents have a duty to guide them in a path that is righteous, in a path that the parents deem fit. And nobody should say that no parent has a right to, encourage their children to be in a religion that those parents belong to.
Right. Now, please, before you leave us quickly, to avoid instances like this from happening, what should parents do differently going forward?
Well, so two things need to happen. The GES, I think, would undermine its authority if it doesn't apply sanctions against Achimota School. That's one. Secondly, I think the minister's intervention is crucial. And thirdly, if they are still intransigent, if they still don't want to bend, and respect the Constitution, then probably the parents would have to go to court, and ensure that the courts pronounce a judgment on this.
Right. Thank you, sir, for talking to us this morning. You've been very insightful, and we do hope that you have a good day.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
All right. Thank you. So, yes, that was Ras Mubarak on the line telling us about his stance and explaining why he took those stands. We'll be taking our newspaper review with Eric Ahianyo. Please do not forget this show is proudly brought to you by X Natural Mineral Water, simply natural.
Ghana, I love you. You made me the man to whom I have grown, and I will forever call you my home. Hope I can show you how much I hold you above all that I have known, so you will forever call me your own. To my moms and my pops, Mr. and Mrs. Elfrida Tafa Adabla, who tell their friends and their partners my son is EL the rapper, just to make him jealous and take it further and show them my baby pictures. Ask about their kids and tell them my talent just made me different. I give them credit like I do my Twitter followers. Hallowed be thy name, oh Lord, for making me a part of this. If you know the Bible, what I they talk, will you just calm down, make you skip ahead to track 11. heaven, cause this be advanced. I'm politicking with Stephen, Kwame, and Nivy, homie. Jay said he'd feature if we did a show, he'd keep the proceeds. I feel it's all coming together at a reasonable speed. Caffeine tablets for them rappers who've been sleeping on me. I'm blessed, Charlie, you are stressed, waiting for lunch breaks in one space. I wake up at 10, positive feng shui. Don't get me wrong, while you settle down and the sun fades, I'm in the studio laying vocals until my lungs ache. I'm not a superstar, I'm a national treasure, baby. I got chess moves for checkers players. Big disposition to win in this position I'm in, but it's hard to stay righteous in the city of sin. Best album on my first try, so as long as birds fly in the clear skies, it's angels by my bedside. A young black proud African nigga, forget your collabo, man, I'm trying to be rapping with Jigga. Please, I never said that I am better than another man. I tell him I'm the best artistic product from the motherland. Whatever the case, I know it's been a while waiting. But first, look of course I'm like patient. I said, whatever the case, I know it's been a while waiting. But first, look of course I'm like patient. For
The lyrics talks about our history. I think 2 days ago, Kwame Nkrumah was in the news again. Go and look for it because I shouldn't be telling you everything. I'm told that when we read a lot, we add more to what we know. Now, this morning, Kwesi Kwarteng, a member of the NPP National Communications team, will be joining us in the studio shortly. It's just around the corner. And then MP for Bulsa South, Dr. Clement Park, is also already seated. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Charlie, how's Parliament?
Well, Parliament is okay. I would say that, we have a hung Parliament. So the dynamics are very fluid. And almost every Ghanaian is looking up to Parliament. And it is getting more and more interesting.
We did something like a news documentary, brief one, that catalogued the chronology of events from the day the EC finally declared the Senate West seat for the NDC. That was when NDC said, okay, even if we have other seats to challenge in court, at least we have 137, NPP has 137. Then the conversation about the hung Parliament started. And then we all saw what happened on January 6th, when that took effect by way of how you played your background lobbying to get the speaker finally elected. Then we saw the first blow, Mahama Yareke's motion asking for the absorption of school fees for tertiary students. The minorities' response at that time was that we didn't have the numbers. We knew very well the speaker was aware. Then the second one is the unanimous approvals of the appointees, because it was extended to the Appointments Committee. Then the budget, when the minority clearly said that, look, we won't approve it. Then 134 demonstrating that as many as possible went for a no vote. But MPP was fully present, 137 votes. So yesterday I've monitored other media platforms, and the conversation is the so-called hung Parliament and the ability to use that as a tool to check the executive is a reality or a myth?
Well, I would say it's a reality. You must understand that we are a human institution and we are dealing with processes, and those processes have to do with time and context. Now, we have the opportunity to dictate the context, but time brings and throws up a lot of issues that are usually beyond human control. So if we take, for example, the recent vote where we came up short by about some 3 votes.
3 votes.
And you know what occasioned that. I mean, these are not occurrences that you and I can possibly predict. We were there, all of us 134 who were in the House at that material moment. We all voted against the budget. Now they were there, 137, they all voted for the budget. Time, because, 2 of our colleagues had been bereaved. And as is respected, they had gone to perform the needed last respects.
Were they aware of the position of the minority and the fact that the budget was going to be approved on Friday?
Well, that's why I say time, because the way Parliament works is that, by and large, it is leadership that would confer with the Speaker, and then processes unfold.
Yeah, that's where the film is, because the leadership on both sides would meet with the Speaker and then agree on timelines for dealing with some of these things like the debate. And so at the time the minority leader was holding a press conference, that was the position, and they were going to demonstrate that until government goes to correct the so-called cooked figures and the other issues raised, they were going to declare their position. And so that was when the whipping system should have demonstrated the readiness to prove to us that indeed there's a hung parliament and it can be...
Yeah, the whipping system definitely was in place. I am a member of parliament, and I know that my whip had put the information out that we all ought to be available. But I'm speaking about time because you cannot dictate or know how long the debate is going to take, the type of interruptions that would go on. So, for example, I know that one of our colleagues, even though he was briefed, was aggressively on his way. But before he got to the chamber, the vote had been taken. And he wasn't even the only one. In fact, the second deputy speaker as well, who has agreed to sit with the MPP
side,
he was also somewhere else. And before he got to, in fact, he had even made it to the chamber, but at that time, the vote had already been taken. So what I'm trying to say is that, granted that that was the case, but we still had an issue that would have made it impossible for us to come up tops. Because one of our colleagues, as we speak today, is still in a rather unpleasant condition in as far as his health is concerned. So technically, yes, we could have showed up 136 of us, but we could not have had 137.
Okay, so still on it, Doc, sorry to put you on the spot because I'm only taking advantage to ask the questions that bother a lot of people. Now, how strategic is the Speaker's role in proving this? Because we know that the President has told the House that the Ijapa deal will be brought before Parliament. So, obviously, the trend of events suggests that the minority will make all the noise, give all the assurances, and at the end of the day, we may come back and say, somebody was sick, and these are the reasons, and we'll go, and that's going to be the rest of the story.
Well, we are hoping that our colleague will recover and join us, so we always remember him in prayers. The important thing for me now is that we are redeeming ourselves from what happened on March 3rd, where some members from our side clearly, broke ranks and voted against the well wishes of many Ghanaians, and particularly our rank and file. So if you compare that to what happened recently, almost everybody who was in the chamber on our side did what was expected. Now, there are different ways that we go about approving matters that come to Parliament. There are things that come that will require what we call a simple majority. And in that case, even if you have one vote extra compared to your opponents, you carry the day. I mean, we saw it play out in the election of the Speaker.
Parliament.
We also saw the same thing play out in the approval of nominees that many felt were undesirable of the positions for which they had been nominated for. And we also saw it again with regards to the budget approval. Those are matters that required a simple majority. There will be other issues that will require 2/3. And in those cases where 2/3 will be required, it is clear.
It's obvious.
It is clear that there is no way the government is going to get
it's not
this way.
Got the 2/3 votes needed to approve any bill. It is rare in terms of proceedings in Parliament. Now, MPs have made us aware that they are there first on behalf of the party, but the national interest is supreme. But in this particular case, the rhetoric is that when the Speaker of Parliament so decides or is sick and cannot be in his chair, that is when the gamble NDC played by nominating the MP who is an independent candidate as the second deputy speaker, or Joe Wise will sit in the chair and then the numbers can play. Now,
would it be necessary for a speaker to demonstrate his bias on some national issues and so take advantage of the hung parliament and the expectation of the larger public to decide that, as for this one, I'll leave it to the House, as for this one, I'll sit? Or the speaker should just play fair game regardless of whatever must be.
Well, this is a question you should be posing to the speaker. I can't purport to speak for a speaker.
I dream that one day,
but I can speak for Parliament. So I can speak for my.
Is to come.
I can speak for myself.
Tell us.
I can speak for myself. But the point I wish to make is that it is entirely possible that matters will come that would even require a simple majority, where people from the other side may disagree with their own side. I mean, we saw that with the issue of electing the speaker. So, you know, it shouldn't be just black and white, that it is only the 137 MDC MPs who can hold this government accountable. But I am very sure.
The president...
No. We have just started.
When it is A,
we have just started.
When it is B,
this parliament, the 8th parliament of the Republic of Ghana, we are not even 6 months old yet. There's a lot to come. I mean, we have a whole 4 years. By the grace of God, if we are all well and healthy, I can assure you that you would see instances where people from the other side would join us like they did to elect the speaker in disagreeing with what government is proposing. I can tell you that even
telling me
the issue...
I see you telling me keep on keeping on.
Well, we have to. We have to, because we must also believe.
It's dangerous.
We must believe, because to be honest, if we are going to go strictly by the numbers, we are disadvantaged. But the truth too is that people are not naive. I know there are colleagues on the other side who are not happy with what is going on. Even within the context of recent conversations and discussions about going on, they are not happy. And that is why, you know, leadership is important. Our leaders know where they have to touch and feel and know and have a pulse. So that if there are issues that will come up where we have a very strong sense that there is internal opposition, then one of the options that leadership can propose, as we did with the case of the speaker's, you know, election, would be to propose a secret ballot, knowing fully well that perhaps we've been able to lobby and negotiate and get some support from the other side. And the reason why a secret ballot in that sense would be preferable is because they would also want to go with what is reasonable, acceptable, as we may have been able to persuade them to agree with, but they will not want to incur the wrath of their party. And that is why when you do a secret ballot, it is useful. So that's why I say it is very dynamic and very fluid. Okay. And every issue must be looked at on its own merit. So I don't think that we should give up hope on the basis of what we have witnessed in terms of, you know, we got a speakership which is big, right? As we speak today, some people are still wailing and they are wishing that that decision could be undone. Well, they got their ministers approved and they got their budget approved. So technically you can say perhaps it's a 2-1. And I mean, the game, we still have a lot of time
But
left.
if you have the speaker and you're not getting what people expect in these early days, it's almost like having fried pork on your plate and you don't have teeth. You can smell it.
Well, you see, there are some intangibles that the speaker brings to the table that will not be obvious to those who are not within the system. I mean, I can give you a few examples of the speaker asserting himself and challenging the presidency on matters that hitherto would never even come to the public domain. I know the recent one that you may be aware of is his insistence that the executive does not have the right to cut the budget of the judiciary in the legislature. And he has told us that as we are now going to look at the appropriation, the estimates before we come for the approval of the appropriation, he would not sanction whatever we bring if at the committee level, the committee is responsible for those two areas and others do not assert themselves in making sure that the executive...
How is it going to be done? I've read a news item somewhere and Oseche Mensah Bonsu is saying that the speaker doesn't have that right
under the Constitution to even block any of those things? I don't know.
When we get there, we will cross the bridge. Okay. No one should pretend. And Che himself is aware, the majority leader of the majority group, that when it comes to parliamentary processes and procedure and experience, he is no match for the Honorable Albert Sumana Bagbin. I mean, this is a man who was born politically with the first parliament of the Fourth Republic,
and has lived with
and he matured through it to the Seventh Parliament, whereupon he chose not to contest again and is now Speaker. So if there is anybody who knows the rules of engagement, I can tell you that it is the man who is occupying the chair as
the
we speak.
grandfather of Parliament.
So he knows what he's saying.
Sumana Bagbin.
If it was not doable, he wouldn't say it.
Okay, so
and you can see from his demeanor that he takes these matters very, very, very seriously. He's not joking around. He's not beating about the bush. And he has made it very clear. And I believe him when he says that he would not give an accent to anything that comes to him regarding this appropriation if what is required is not done. Because truly, the executive doesn't have that power. It doesn't have that right to tamper with the budgetary requests and allocations to the judiciary and the legislature. Because we are co-equals. Why is it okay for the executive to pad up his own funding? I mean, to the extreme.
But
and yet you are cutting down.
There's no formula that is in the Constitution that specifies that if the executive is getting 20% of the total allocation in the budget for, let's say, government expenditure, Parliament should also get the same percentage.
Yes, so but then you don't cut our budget.
No, but
that is the point.
I gave you 2 CDs and nothing shows that
tomorrow. You don't get to cut our budget.
I gave you 2 CDs yesterday because I want to look at the size of my pocket. And tomorrow I'm giving you 1 CD 50 pesos.
So it is okay.
Is that cutting?
It is okay to put 4 million Ghana cedis assigned to something called government communication. And yet you think that, Parliament, I mean, the legislature and the judiciary, we should be washing our hands with spittle. Clearly, there is going to be a showdown. And I believe that is going to happen.
Today, we are not discussing Parliament, but somebody also says that there's a lot of wastage in Parliament.
I don't belong to the parliamentary service, so
not by way of money going into the pocket, but there are a lot of services that are being given to the Parliament as a body, which can be managed to cut down expenditure. Maybe the Speaker of Parliament and MPs would want to also look at this as a way of helping to save some money for other needs in the country.
Well, the executive should be taking the lead to do that.
Dr. Clement Apak, he's an MP, so any day.
No, I don't know. I don't work for the parliamentary service. What I know is that I get my salary.
Okay.
Like everybody else. The deductions are made for my V8. That is what I know.
I will use it for my wife's wedding next month.
I can loan it to you.
No problem.
By the way, I pay for it, so it's not free. It's important. I'm paying the loan.
My name is Eric Ahianyo. He's Dr. Clement Apak. The conversation has been on Parliament, and I'm sure the issues we raised are equally exciting to you. If you agree or disagree with any of the issues we have been discussing, send us your text message 0556 999 999. This is TVXYZ. This is Wazer TV. And those of us following the conversation on social media, Facebook, YouTube, just continue sharing the links and let us hear others also contribute their views to our discussion. In fact, I've told you earlier, Kwesi Kwateng, NPP communication team member, will be joining us. Dr. Clement Apak is the MP for Bulsa South. My colleague Nana Benasewa had an exciting conversation with Ras Mubarak. And Ras has a strong position. He thinks that there are issues about human rights. The students are being abused. We perhaps must have a second thought at the way we go about things and allow the students to have their free will to exercise any belief, even at school, with all the regulations the schools have exercised over the years. How have you seen the way the whole issue has been managed so far?
Well, first of all, I became aware of this issue through social media, and then it was picked up by mainstream media as well. And I followed the arguments, the concerns raised by
the parents of the said students who, are wearing, Rasta hair, so to speak. And the understanding is that, this is their religion. It is their identity, that they have always worn this hairdo. And the truth be told is that they did very well. Obviously, to get aggregate 6, aggregate 10, and to be admitted to, the preeminent, Ghanaian versions of Ivy League senior high schools is no small achievement. I mean, I didn't get the chance to go to a school like Achimota or St. John's or Pope Jones or Presec. I went to a rural school, but at least I have also earned my due to be here. But it is always the wish and desire of every parent that your ward will do very well and to get admitted to such prestigious schools, as hard as it may be. I wish every other school in Ghana would be at the same level, but the truth is that some schools are way more prestigious based on their history, their track record, their performance, and even the type of old students that they have produced. If we look at Achimota, I mean, we know the kinds of people who have gone through that school. Many of them have gone on to become national leaders and all of that. But the issue too is that whilst I can sympathize with the parents, as an educationist myself and a member of the Education Committee of Parliament, we must also recognize that there are rules and regulations guiding every institution. So, for example, in Parliament, we have our rules and regulations. I mean, we have a dress code. You can't just wear a pair of jeans and a T-shirt and go there and then expect that the Speaker will accept you into the chamber. You will be walked out.
And this extends to other members of the public.
Exactly. So, every institution, in as much as we are independent and we must all subsume ourselves ultimately under the Constitution and advocate for our rights, there are also rules and regulations that have been put in place to guide conduct, behavior, and even appearances. Now, this is very dicey also because these are minors. So technically, they don't get to make decisions on their own. And their parents ought to make decisions for them. So they must profess the religion, doctrine, or belief system that they've been brought up with. The school has not rejected them. The school has admitted them. But I think the issue at hand is the school saying that by their code of conduct, the particular hairstyle, which is argued to be a product of a belief system, is not admissible. So although the school has admitted them, the school has admitted them expecting that they will now conform to the rules and regulations of that school. I've heard that certain schools, you can have dreadlocks and you'll be admitted. This school in particular, dreadlocks is not acceptable as far as their conduct is concerned. So if you ask my honest opinion, I would think that in the wake of this issue, perhaps before GES came in, I believe over the weekend, we had a pronouncement that GES had directed that the school should admit them. And today we are hearing that GES has done a backtracking, a 360. We perhaps should have just encouraged, I would say, the wards, the parents, to do as they said they were going to do, which was to go and file a case at the Human Rights Court so that we get finality to this issue. Because I can guarantee you this is not the only instance that has come to my attention. And in the wake of this, a lot more issues are coming up. Where do we draw the line? The right to education is a fundamental right granted by the Constitution. And is it the case that a child's appearance, a child's belief system can become a barrier to accessing education? And in this particular case, given that the school did not say, we are not admitting you, but this is not acceptable, how do we navigate this issue? So for me, although as a committee we have not received a formal petition because the parents competition.
We understand the Minister for Education, who was expected in Parliament last Friday and even yesterday, but I've seen the other paper. It was not part of the conversation yesterday, but I hear he might be in the House today to answer questions with reference to this textbook issue Okudzeto filed. And so I suspect it will be part of a conversation. If
we can try. We can try, Eric. You know, Parliament works in a very strange way. Once it is not part of the question, original question, except the Speaker allows it. And even so, except the Minister agrees that he has sufficient knowledge and information about it to give a response.
He may or he
may not. So, because it is not part of the question
it's
for which the Minister is to appear, it is subject to the discretion of the Speaker and the willingness of the Minister to respond to it, given what knowledge or not that he has.
I'm sure, obviously, he's following this discussion, but there are two things here. In fact, one submission you've just made speaks to the issue about rights. And some are saying, as Nagrat has put it, that it could lead to chaos. I come from the Volta region. I know the Trokosi system, for example, is a way of life there, and it is attributed to traditional religion. And we know the way they dress. Even the kids, most of the time they have clothes tied to their chests, walking barefooted with all kinds of marks on their skin with clay or something. And tomorrow, somebody may also place some of those children in school to dress that way in the name of human rights. Some say, if you look at the Constitution, our rights go beyond culture. Your right to water, your right to this, your right to that, they are all in the Constitution. But government is not implementing any of them at the same time. So at what point will this so-called right issue be seen as being abused and the national conversation will come up to this stage?
Well, Eric, that is why I truly believe that it is time for some of these issues to be given clear and proper interpretation. Because clearly the rights are available. They are there for us. Sometimes we overlook them. We don't demand them. We don't assert ourselves in enjoying or benefiting from those rights. Other times too, we assert ourselves, we demand them, and we may get them. But where it is nuanced, like in this particular case, where the right to education is there, but we also have rules and regulations that should guide the way education is assessed, then we need an authority that has the mandate to proper interpretation. But the issue you have raised is a very genuine one. I mean, where are we going to draw the line? Some have also argued, rightly so, that this, if granted, could open a Pandora's box. And I think that is what you are trying to suggest.
Sure.
I mean, where I come from too, we have a belief system, you know, where people who belong to certain clans or are selected to be, if you like, priests or priestesses of certain deities must conduct themselves in a certain way. I mean, I heard of another story where a young fetish priest has also been denied his place.
Yes, it's in the Volta region.
In the Volta region.
Because I saw the picture of her with something like...
voila. So where are we going to draw the line? So it's a very delicate matter. But the point to be made is that I truly would have wished...
I was going to hang you there because Kwesi Kwarteng has joined us.
Very well.
So that when we take this short break for him to take his seat, you will continue there, then we can give him the space to speak briefly to this issue. We'll be back.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it. naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome to AutoCheck Vehicle Diagnostic and Licensing Center.
I hear my car can be checked here without going to so many Accra.
Sure.
Check, auto checks, check, auto checks, check.
Emission, check.
Check, auto checks.
Alignment, check.
Auto checks, check, auto checks.
Brakes, check. Visit AutoChecks at Koforidua Aquadum Road for the roadworthiness of your vehicle, from saloon cars to heavy-duty industrial vehicles. Madam, your car is now ready for the road.
Thank you so much.
Auto checks.
Auto checks, check.
AutoChecks, your safety, our priority.
Check, auto checks.
Welcome back. So Kwesi Kwarteng has now taken his seat. Kwesi, how are you?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chakakra.
Unfortunately, I cannot justify why I'm late,
Okay.
but it just happens.
Yes,
so
of course. Sometimes you don't predict where the traffic will be.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy you are here.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes when these things happen, depending on where the person lives and what may happen on the road, we do it by phone.
Sure.
And so that option was available. But I'm happy you are in the studio. You look smart.
Thank you. I mean, it's okay.
You are a smart boy.
Yeah, sure. I just have
okay. So Dr. Park and I did a brief chat on Parliament. I took it specifically to his doorstep because he's an MP, he understands proceedings, and he has walked through what issues and how they are going to be addressed when they come up. And we've been speaking to the head Rastafarians, and he's been looking at the pros and cons. He will land, and then you make a brief comment, and then we'll walk into other national issues. The finance minister is back in town. He's healthy, according to the information we have. The doctors have told him that the workload should be minimized to help him gradually recover. We know it's outstanding because he's here to appear before the appointments committee. We'll be looking at what is likely to come up. We'll look at the 2020 budget, what is in it for the education sector. I understand there was no debate on that issue at all, but the budget was approved. What does it mean? A member of the Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Park, is with us. We'll be looking at some of these issues, and if there's time, we fall on other exciting stories. Doc, you are wrapping up on conversation.
on this issue. So the point I just want to make is that it's a complicated issue, but I think we're agreeing that the argument that if this is allowed, it could open a Pandora's box. It's also one that must not be lost on us, because we have given different examples of other persons professing other faiths who may also then make the argument that what constitutes their identity should be allowed wholesale, and as far as the education of the awards are concerned. But you know, the concern I had was the approach of GES, whereupon we heard that GES had instructed the school authorities to take in the students. They've been admitted. The issue is whether they meet the criteria as, you know, put out by the school itself. That GES had given that directive. Only for us to hear again that as the Rastafarian Council itself has put it, that the GES directive was a fluke. That is the word they use, a fluke. That has not been very helpful to this whole conversation and enterprise. But for the old students, their position is understandable because they went to that school. They have expectations. They have an interest. They went through it themselves. And perhaps they also know the sacrifices that they had to make before taking their rightful places in that school. And not to, obviously, must
be factored in, because NAGRAT, as an institution representing, teachers at the secondary level across the country, they also are afraid that, if this were to go through, it would have implications for this uniformity and in particular discipline. Okay. So we need to look at all of these issues vis-a-vis the right of the child to access education. And I think that at the end of the day, if the parents are so aggrieved, or the Rastafarian Council is aggrieved, as they said that they would do, it is okay that they test what has happened in court so that we get some finality.
Okay. So Dr. Clement Apaak has been speaking extensively to this particular issue, and he landed, and I wanted him to use that as a tool to whet the appetite of Kwesi Kwarteng to walk us into his views on this subject. Kwesi, I think back and forth, controversy here and there, decisions not being affirmed, rejected, the school having the support of the association. Now, if this had been a poor school in a very deprived community, do you think the GES approach would have been different?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. It's a valid one. First of all, let me subscribe to most of the things that Dr. Apaak has said here. I think he has attempted to make known the positions of the various stakeholders with regards to the issue at stake. And largely, you have diverse opinions, even on the matters of interpretation on the Constitution, for instance, as to what the law really, the position of the law on this. There has even been diverse interpretations about the school, for instance, having its rules and vis-a-vis the student having his fundamental human rights of, how do you call it, believing in whatever faith that he wants to subscribe to. And I think these arguments are all valid, and probably it's about time that we have to set the record straight. And I'm more enthused by the fact that you have, say, the parents of the child attempting to go to the law court. And I think there have been such pronouncements from them to seek a declaration to that effect on whether or not, at the end of the day, a student in that matter, the circumstance that we are talking about, can carry his Rastafarian hair to the school. But it all boils down to what you asked, whether or not, if it was a school, probably in my village in Asante, whether this would have been an issue. I think most importantly is about a balance on human rights and where we should draw our sectional lines. And so, to me, it goes beyond which institution that this happened. Though I have also seen pictures on social media where some schools
have accepted,
have accepted students in this category. And so the question has always been, where do we draw our sectional lines? Because I've also listened to arguments where people are also saying that it will open the floodgate for other people to manifest their religion in a certain way. And at the end, ultimately, we may not even get that uniformity that we want at the end of the day. But my belief is that education is not just an event. It is a process. And the process is comprehensive. And so it is not largely only on the academic exercise where you go and you are taught osmosis, or you are taught about government, or you are taught about any other subject in the institution. It is a comprehensive process where you have to learn about other faiths, other religion, other people's culture, the differences, and that diversity. At the end of the day, you create uniformity from the diversity. And so from that angle, it is not wrong if a school like, say, Achimota proposes that its own internal rules, and of course, we should also recall or remember that it is the Parliament of Ghana and the Constitution that guarantees that such institutions or administrative bodies can make their own internal rules. And so, if at the end of the day, such rules are being usurped by, say, an institution like GES, India Earlier Directive, you will not find it that easy, especially with the positions of, say,
the Old Student Association,
the Old Student Association and NAGRAT and other stakeholders. And so all these points are valid, but the fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves is that in the midst of where we have to say the schools have their own rules, education is not an event, it is a comprehensive process, and therefore there have to be some form of uniformity even in our diversity. Balancing that or juxtaposing that with, say, the rights of the student. And of course, I mean, when you talk about the rights of the student, the question has always been that where does the right ends? Because people have also argued that rights also goes with responsibilities. And so you cannot suggest to anyone that so far as you have rights, such rights can be manifested anyway, anyhow, at any time. And so that thing should also be made clear. But ultimately, my greatest concern is that all these things ultimately should not be done to affect the child or the children in this question.
The parents want to break the odds to set an example that may be good anyway, irrespective of the circumspection some people harbor. But the fact is that if the parents should go to court and the court decides that the child must be admitted, would it be appropriate for the parents to allow the child to go to that school? Because it should be psychologically traumatized. And as long as the school may take that directive under protest, that child and the conducive atmosphere he might need in the school may not be perfect.
Yeah, to me, such a concern is a valid one. But I'm more probably inclined to believe that, I mean, these are guys who might have faced this, this might not be the first time they are facing it, especially in a society that the perception towards some of these people is not all that good. And so, to me,
they can adjust.
Yes, they can adjust. It's something that they can.
I want to read this question, and still to you, Kwesi Kwarteng, a member of the MPP communication team. It says, and this one, Kwabena Sanaya put this on Facebook. It says, the question our children will be asking us in the near future, why is it taking Africans so long to rediscover their identity? Why do Africans claim independence, but their minds remain in shackles? Why is the African identity or diversity accepted in Western cultures, institutions, and societies, but rejected in Africa? My answer, inferiority complex deeply embedded in us. I don't know what this means, but what does this send to you? Because the person says, and somebody asked it, was it Ras Mubarak who said it in the conversation, or somebody we spoke to, that our women wear Brazilian hair. They do all kinds of things because the indoctrination came from the West. We had our own way of living. We were not dressing like how you see me now, but we accepted other influences that see our policemen in black uniform sweating under the sun because we have copied it. And we think it is still normal because that indoctrination is still imbibed in us. And yet, our own culture, that should be a norm, we see it as alien. I don't know how you respond to this controversy triggered by this post I've read.
I think it still boils down to matters of opinion. Well, I do not even know where this whole concept of Rastafarianism falls when it comes to, say, the argument of culture.
Or religion.
Yes, or religion. Because I have also heard people advance arguments as in that, say, the military, for instance, do not accept it in the military school. And
so somebody in future will go to the military school and say that, yes, I want to be a Rasta soldier man.
Yes. And even if you bring in, say, the argument about culture, whether it's foreign culture or whatever infiltration, I mean, the question has always been that if you take other jurisdictions like, say, the US and England, do they accept even Rastafarianism in their military?
I don't know.
So
they could.
Yeah, they could. So those are some of the questions and some of the comparisons that we'll have to draw inspiration from.
I think we have
quite honestly, they don't. Yes. I have lived in the US, I've lived in Canada, I've lived in Norway, and I've traveled to several other countries. There are some institutions, private sector, yes, some health facilities, yes, and academia. I've had colleagues who wear Rasta. I mean, one of my own colleagues at the University of Ghana today, Professor Wazi Apo, not long ago, he was the head of department of the archaeology department. We were colleagues here before we all went abroad and studied. He's always been wearing dreadlocks and many others. So it depends on the institutions.
Yeah.
It depends on the institution.
So admittedly, there are sectional lines. And so Achimota is not very wrong if they probably put a sectional line on matters that concerns uniformity. You get it. They are not entirely. But then, of course, it also boils down to whether or not it infringes on the fundamental human rights of such a person.
But Eric, we shouldn't move on. This is important. You see, we have to segregate this from the tendency to, if you like, stigmatize people who look different from us or dress differently or have a different head.
But we have lived with Rastafarians.
No. But it is still an issue, and this is some of the argument that the parents are even making.
But they have not come out to say that Rastafarians on the streets of Accra, in Kumasi, wherever in Ghana.
No. The point I'm making is that if you listen to the argument,
the
argument also borders on this aspect of discrimination, where they are being discriminated. Some are arguing that instead of looking at their brain, which is excellent because they perform very well,
I want to check.
We are looking at their physical outlook.
It is 8:30.
And I don't think that should be the argument.
You'll be surprised. It's 8:30.
It should be about the rules and regulations of the school. And the truth is that there are other schools which allow people
also
like
based on
that
their
to be
rules
able
and
to attend.
regulations.
We have 30 minutes more.
Very well.
And,
Eric, this is the dominant issue of the week.
Okay, so let's now, Kwesi, Kenoforata is back.
Yeah.
Many people were worried. There were even rumors that he has passed, and his team was very proactive, giving us information that it is not true. At the point when Oseche Mensah Bonsu had to go and read the budget, the public was saying, how serious could the sickness be, such that he wrote to Parliament, I'll be away for 2 weeks, and he didn't come. The budget was read. Then 2 days after, we see him via Zoom debating the budget on a project or a workshop organized by PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then the budget is approved on Friday. Saturday is back in town. And so some are saying that, is it really that he was that seriously sick, or he was trying to avoid the appointments committee, and so once the budget is approved, he's back in town and is going to walk into the system slowly. How do you react to these perceptions?
Well, I mean, like you said, there are perceptions, and we have to interrogate the validity of such perceptions. And so, to me, every perception is valid, and it all depends on the context or the angle that the person is coming from, and the kind of information that is available or such a person is exposed. And then, but then, if you want to interrogate it, at the end, he will still have to face the appointments committee anyway, because until before he has been vetted and approved by Parliament, he cannot carry himself as a finance minister.
Voilà.
And so that alone should shoot such arguments from such a
What
person.
would be the ultimate goal of the finance minister in terms of the appropriation of the budget that may be approved, in terms of what is going to the committee levels? Maybe Dr. Park may also walk us through this, because the budget has been approved. It must be expended. It will start from the 1st of April. The finance minister has not been, approved by Parliament. Does it mean that until he's approved, government cannot spend?
I think you are reducing the whole work about the finance ministry to a person.
No, you see, we are asking these questions because there are a lot of people out there who are still not too much sure of how things will go, because there's somebody who is key to the national economy, especially in other jurisdictions. The fact that a finance minister is sick and has been rushed to another country, and that is the only place he can get the best of medical care, otherwise things will be worse. The stock exchange will be moved. Maybe in a part of the world we have not gotten to that level.
I get you, but
so that is the issue
I just want
on
to
the
ask a
table.
question.
No, Eric, he's right. I mean, your argument is, I mean, he has shut it down already. Are you saying that without Kenoforata, we cannot function as a nation state?
And
just
so
like he is dispensable.
And so
he wasn't there. The budget has been read. Doc, he is not there.
Doc, take your
we
time.
are going to go to appropriations and
Doc, take your time and listen. The question is this. He was supposed to appear before the appointment committee.
He will still appear before the
He was
appointment committee
supposed
anyway.
to be vetted.
He'll
He
be
was
vetted
not
anyway.
around.
Yes.
And he would have his vetting and approval would have been key to the reading of the budget.
Not necessarily.
Excuse me. So if he was in Ghana and was active, Oseche Mensah Bonsu wouldn't have been reading the budget.
That's valid.
So the budget has been read, approved. He has come in. What is the urgency at this time in whether the hanging questions that the appointments committee has been told, I was not aware, will be addressed? That is the import of the question. And so at this stage, I don't know whether Doc believes that you shut it down. That is the concern I am deriving from the question about whether at this stage that issue is of interest to anybody.
No, but would that even have any relation with the budget at the end of the day? Because if today Parliament decides to probably curtail his approval, the budget upon it being approved and appropriated by Parliament will still be adopted and it will still be implemented. And so that's why I said you cannot reduce, say, the entire concept about the budget to, say, a personality. And I wanted to even cite an example here. If today, probably by whatever unfortunate contingencies that comes and you are not here, certainly somebody is going to produce the show and there will be somebody sitting in as a host. It does not necessarily mean that, say, the whole broadcasting association like TV XYZ or the XYZ Broadcasting Corporation at the end of the day will not work. And so, yes, at his own personal level, he may have some questions or some remarks to make to the appointments committee, and that is left to him to answer. But I do not see any relation between that and, say, the budget. At the end of the day, the budget went through processes. It was read, it was adopted by the House. I mean, with that one, there have been issues about whether or not this person should have been voted to this angle or this side. But ultimately, it has been accepted. And I think, Doctor, the next stage is appropriation of what?
Yes, we are going to look at the estimates.
Yes.
Estimates.
At the committee level.
Yes.
Then we'll take it back to the plenary.
Yeah. So I think...
Okay, so Doc, Kwesi has a strong point here. And so the question again is it of concern or should it be of concern to anybody about whether he will appear, how soon he will appear, and the matters that may so arise? Will it now be reduced to him benefiting from the approvals at that stage, or maybe the answers will perhaps hang forever?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. First of all, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding his departure from the shores of Ghana to wherever he went. There are some who believe that it wasn't for any medical attention, that he was merely trying to avoid, receiving very difficult and uncomfortable questions, and that now that all of those matters have been resolved and the budget has passed, he's now easing himself back, to come and perhaps get some rather weak questioning before the appointments committee, and then to assume his role as finance minister. Well, I don't believe in those conspiracy theories. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But what I can assure you is that he would be grilled vigorously. I mean, if you have seen the way the appointments committee has conducted itself, I mean, we can have our disagreements about the way the 3rd of March went. But in terms of the appointment committee itself doing its work, well researched, asking the very potent questions, I would perhaps say that his delay in appearing before the committee may not do him a lot of good. Because now the budget is out, everybody knows the content. Most of the questions that our side would have wanted to raise, where he perhaps
on the floor
where he perhaps could have given an excuse of not knowing, or let's wait and see, or I am not aware, they are all captured in the budget. So the issues of the physicals, in terms of the numbers that the likes of Atuforsen, Adongo, John Jinako, and even our leader has raised, they are all on the appointments committee. So they will get to ask him some of those questions. So I would probably argue that if it is that he was trying to avoid hard questions, as some conspirators have said, he wouldn't have done himself a lot of good, because he will now have to respond to even harder questions, because the product is now out. We all know the content. And so it makes it easier for the questioners to be able to be specific. Because he could say that he wasn't part of the preparation, but I'm not sure anyone will buy that. So it is a very interesting dynamic that we have to follow and then see what happens. But he cannot hold himself up as a finance minister if he does not go through the processes. That much we know. So for now, he is not the finance minister of the Republic of Ghana. He's a finance minister designate until he completes all the processes.
Okay, we don't have much
approved
time.
By
the conversation I want to still stay in Parliament this time will be on the policy direction going forward on the education sector? Because I noticed that there was little or no debate on that. I don't know what is in the budget and what government hopes to do in the coming days. And you, as a member of the Committee on Education, what you know and what should be of interest to every Ghanaian?
Well, I have to say that it was a bit disappointing that we didn't get to debate the educational sector. You know, we presented our list, but I think the issue had to do with time. But I thought that given how important education is and will continue to be, at least we should have been giving some space to debate education. But there are a number of outstanding issues that need to be resolved. The issue of the free senior high school, the issue of the double track is still in existence. I mean, matters to do with COVID and our response, the effect of COVID-19 on education. These are matters that continue to be important, that would have been important to bring out to the public domain. I mean, if for nothing at all, I mean, this issue of some assets which were never really made available to students to use to write the BEC and bluegrass and all of these things, you know, would have been useful to highlight so that the people of Ghana would know that we are taking all of these matters very seriously. But we still have a chance to raise these same issues at the committee level. And of course, once we are done with the budget estimates, we will come to the plenary and we will be able to catch up. But it would have been very useful for us to have at least debated education as well.
What is your take on this? Maybe you can inform us, because the minority has been very critical of the entire budget. But I believe that there is obviously something in there which should be of interest to Ghanaians by way of what government intends to do. I don't know if you have delved into the budget with specific reference to the education sector.
Okay, I think ultimately the budget is clear and is on continuity. And so you look at where we started from. I mean, of course, government policies on education, for instance, say a critical policy like the free SHS, that has seen enrollment move to around 1.2 million students, I mean, which was not so in the past. Because you look at it, the statistics is about almost 40% increment with regards to when we came into office. And so if we're a government that's probably on the education sector, you brought this transformative, how do you call it, policy, certainly the argument is about how you are able to sustain it. And so, to me, I think all those things were captured in the budget about sustaining the, how do you call it, the free SHS policy. And of course, the doctor also raised about the, how do you call it, the double track system. And so the double track system, for instance, I know that there are some infrastructure projects that were already ongoing. And of course, there has been also some budgetary allocations to those ones that has not been completed. I mean, if you look at it, there has been also completion of some of them. Initially, we had about 700 secondary institutions, and out of these 700, we have a little over 300 that were under the double track. As I speak with you,
actually, we have 721.
Yes, 721. Yes, officially, and you
public.
have public institutions, and you have a little over 300 that were under the double track system. And so, even that impression that has been put out there that it is as though the whole country is under double track is not entirely accurate. But then government has made some efforts with regards to even getting some of these schools off track, the double track. And as of now, what we will have to support government is to really complete what they started somewhere.
But there are outstanding issues, because I know at the beginning of the year, the president was categorical that those who be going for their first term as freshers would not go through double track.
Yes.
And if you look at the 2020 budget, the allocation to free SHS was 2,259,257,748.
That has been reduced.
And it has been reduced, if you look at the 2021 budget, to free SHS to 1,974,000,000. So almost about 500 million cedis cut at a time when enrollment has gone up. Is it not an issue of concern about government commitment to deal with this double track system?
Yeah, like I said, you know, I mean, if you look at most of these GET Fund projects, over 1,000 of them were already in process. And so it depends on the completion stage. and which ones have been paid for. And so if you want to say, sustain the argument about whether or not government has allocated much funds into it, you also have to then juxtapose it with those of the projects that has already been completed and has been paid for. And so until you do such analysis, such an argument will also not be fair to government that, well, government has not really demonstrated enough concern with regards to the removal of the double track. If you look at it, I think when the double track came into being, government made it clear that it was going to take a period of within 7 years. And to me, if you look at when double track came till now, we are likely not to even get to the 7 years for us to probably do away with it. And so ultimately, what is more important is that some projects has been completed and other projects are being ongoing. And at the end, if government decides to be quite economical with the projects and probably with regards to the allocation of funds, decides to be more, how do you call it, more careful with the spending, it is in the right direction that I believe government is doing.
Okay, so that's Kwesi Kwarteng, a member of the NPP National Communications team. Now, Dr. Park, this green, yellow, blue, whatever track, the fact is some progress has been made. And as many of the schools which were practicing it, as we speak, with first-year students in school, some of those schools are doing straight round for the students.
Well, Eric, you see, government has not been consistent in this proposal on when it is going to face this double track system out. I have argued several, I've even written about it, where different government officials have given different timelines. I mean, the president himself is on record to have said by 2024, that was only last year. The current Minister for Education said 5 to 7 years. The outgoing Minister of Education said 5 years. The current Vice President said very soon. So there is some uncertainty. And that is because they know fully well that they are not marshalling the resources needed and applying them vigorously to try and create the space. Because the double track system, as we all know, is a product of lack of adequate space to accommodate the increased enrollment. So that is what it is. As we speak now, 721 schools. He was right. Just about 350 from the onset were practicing the double track. As a member of the Education Committee, I have had reason to file questions to the minister on how many of the projects had been completed. Right before the last parliament ended, before we went to campaign to get re-elected or to be rejected, I had asked a question, and the minister's response was that not even half of the projects that were initiated had been completed. Looking in the current budget, indeed, the statistics show that all the infrastructural projects that were initiated in 2017, not half have been completed. So clearly, when you then see this and juxtapose that with a reduction in the amount allocated for the Senior High School
for concern,
there is reason to worry.
There's another issue I want us to discuss, Doc, because I'm looking at the space and what we can really say. And let me start with Kwesi, and it's about this notice to government. The Federation of Labour is asking for an emergency meeting of the tripartite committee, and it is with reference to salaries, minimum wage, and the signal that either there will be no increase or it may not go up. All boil down to the new taxes in the budget. Is it a fair demand from the side of Labour, especially when we all agree that the economy is in a tight corner because of COVID?
Well, thank you very much. I think the point is that we acknowledge from the onset, I mean, like we said, the premise that we need economic turnaround. I mean, owing to the fact that the consequence of COVID-19 and the fact that most of the things that happens were unforeseen and we'll have to plan for it in emergency situations. And we'll acknowledge that government has spent a lot of money with regards to the fight against COVID. I mean, we will look at the free water, the free electricity, the NBSSI CAPS loan. Government had to get in factories to be producing locally PPEs. I mean, these are all boils down to, say, spendings. And at the end, we need economic turnaround because you had people losing their jobs and other things. And so if you look at, say, organized labor, for instance, they are also making or advancing the case that at this time too, this is probably the time that they also have to probably if not, I mean, get some increment, yes,
to some level.
Yes, to some level, or be insulated to some level. But if you look at the government side, the government is also making an argument, and I think it's clear that we establish it, that is a may. Government has not been categorical. They are not going to increase salaries for some time.
For the next 3 years.
Yes, and if you look at organized labor too, what they are saying is also valid. But I think ultimately there have to be a consensus, and there have to be engagement where both parties, including government and organized labor, will have a conversation about this whole thing. Because at the end, it all boils down to, say, communication issues. If one party in, say, taking decision takes unilateral or sole decision without the other party having the bare facts of, say, the reason or the intention behind such a decision, clearly they have, I mean, you are going to get this whole concept about this, people probably not to understand or pushing against it. And so to me, what I would say is that all stakeholders, including organized labor and government, must come to the negotiating table. Because at the end, if, for instance, I am a worker, I do not care which government is in power. Because you acknowledge that certainly inflation is going to go high, we need economic turnaround, and so prices of goods, everything is going to change. And it is a more reason why probably I should be cushioned. But on the side of the government too, and we acknowledge that as a country, we have to develop based on our taxes. Clearly, we are unable to.
But why will a sensitive government, for example, increase budgetary allocation from 150-something million last year to over 800 million to the office of the president, and still want us to believe that you want to introduce austerity measures without capping where you are going to spend from your own office? So that's not fair.
So it depends on what those monies has been allocated for. I don't know that you will just be making an emotional argument about this.
Like what I just referenced.
Yes. A money has gone here, B money has gone here. So it depends on, say, the nitty-gritty of what this money is being used for. If it is something that can be reasonably be justified, ultimately you cannot probably suggest that because we need economic turnaround, probably the president must not move his car, or when he's traveling, he should now go and, say, use a passenger flight or something. So it depends on, say, the content of what the budget allocation is being used for.
Irrespective of the figures.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that unless you are able to interrogate it, you are unable to establish a case that it is not probably sensitive or efficient. But ultimately, what I believe is that, I mean, this is not only to MPP, but even to all politicians or all other parties, that going forward, we should be looking at widening the tax net. And so if you are able to widen the tax net, what it means is that you bring more or you capture more people on board, and you are unable to, say, burden the existing taxpayers. Because if you look at the statistics from GRA, for instance, I think there are over 6 million potential taxpayers. Currently, government is able to, say, take hold and track only 1.2, a little over 1.2 million. And so if
the
we don't...
issue there is huge.
Yes.
Now, let me come to Dr. Apak. Doc, what would you say to some of those interesting arguments he has raised, which sound very convincing?
Well, first of all, I think that organized labor has every reason to be angered and outraged. We all know the conditions that we face. The well-being of Ghanaians was nothing to write home about, even before the advent of COVID. And COVID has come to compound it. The understanding would have been that, like many other jurisdictions are doing, government would have put in place measures to alleviate the hardships, rather than putting in place measures that would accentuate the hardship. And I think that is why the labor unions are signaling that they are not going to tolerate what is going on, especially so when they see that government itself, especially the executive, is rather padding up its own expenditure and then reducing the expenditure that should go to the rest of the population. But he is right. We would look at the details, and that is why we are going to go to the committee level and to drill deep to find out why certain allocations are being cut, why certain allocations are frozen, and why some are being increased. So, for example, we would find out the justification for the increase in the budgetary allocation for the office of the president. So this is that we are going to do. This exercise that the parliamentary subcommittees are going to engage in
is what is going to bring out the truth about what composes the different
in what format will that be done? Because the Speaker of Parliament has said, and that was in whole, that ideally Parliament would have needed about 3 months to really look into the budget.
That's correct.
And I anticipate that the appropriation stage of the budget may be rushed.
It will be rushed.
If it is rushed, at what stage, and if it has happened before, that the committee will so agree that these aspects that the government has used for projections and its own operations may have to be revised, otherwise it won't be approved.
Well, the way it works when we go to look at the estimates is that every ministry, its agencies, and if you like, departments would have to come and justify their budget. Sometimes they come to complain that allocations made to them is insufficient. Sometimes the committee may agree with them and make a proposal that the allocation should be increased.
Adjusted.
But that is where we get to ask questions. So, taking the office of the president, for example, we will get to know, is the increment as a result of a proposal to increase the number of presidential staffers, for example?
Dr. Park is being mischievous.
No, I used to be a presidential staffer. So I can use that example. And because we know this government has had a tendency.
But that is job creation.
Yeah, exactly. But is that where we should be creating jobs, at the office of the president? Or should we be supporting, persons in need, LEAP, and, persons with disabilities, for example? So it is at that stage that we can ask all of these questions. And you see, I agree with the speaker. The time allotted is not sufficient. We will be under pressure. Even this current budget, the budget policy that we debated, I complained about not having the chance to debate education. It was because of time, from what I am told. But even so, given what we know, and given that we are also going into these meetings aware, prepared, and at least having some sense of where things are leaning, I think we will do a good job.
Okay, so just to wrap up, we have 4 minutes. I'll use the 2 minutes to do text messages. Let me give you 1 minute. Of all the issues that are still hanging around, which one haven't we touched that you want to pass a brief comment on?
I'll just limit myself to the issue about the budget. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we will acknowledge that as a people we need economic turnaround. And the fact that this is the time that we also have to tighten our belt. Of course, questions has been raised about the sensitivity with regards to, say, certain measures from government. But I feel that, let's be very practical here. Until the tax net is practically widened, we are still going to take the pain for some of these things. And if you look at any of these governments, considering the governments in the past or now, it is only President Akufo-Addo's government that has taken practical steps to widen the tax net. Of course, it has not been manifested, but if you look at, say, interventions like, say, the digitizations and trying to, the NIA registration and all those things, say, at the end, ultimately, you synchronize it into one central database and then widen the tax net. But for now, we may have to deal with probably the agency of the moment and probably tighten our belts as of now.
This issue,
I disagree.
You see, and
the tax, we can increase revenue. So by plugging the leakages.
That's your 1 minute.
Yes, the leakages. There are so many leakages in this system. If you go to the ports alone, and the colossal amounts of monies that we lose annually.
It could have been worse, but
if you go to GRA, and the colossal amounts of monies that we lose, if we were to put our effort in there, we wouldn't need to burden Ghanaians with additional nuisance taxes.
All right, the Rasta students issue can't be there. Can't there be restrictions? At least they should be allowed, if only they will cover their hair always. From Ablade sent this text message. This one says, Eben from Kwabenya, corruption has become the norm under acclaimed, hyped, incorruptible President Nana Akufo-Addo. The word corruption is even afraid of President Akufo-Addo's administration. Sorry, let me mention the name of whoever sent this just to acknowledge you. Eben from Kwabenya sent this particular text message. This one says, the EIU or EIE, whatever, let's our ears go to sleep. Ghanaians are high in Ghanaians are in high cost of living. The vulnerable are suffering and so on. I'm getting a number of calls and I don't know. But it just goes on to talk about the fact that things are tough and 4 years under NPP, under this tax regime, will not be accepted. No bagawaya. That's what he sent. This one says, hello, good morning. My name is Agona Deshie from Asen Chechere, and I want you to, you want me to play him taxi driver at this time? Well, that's quite interesting. Unfortunately, I'm getting a number of calls. I cannot read more text messages. I'll end it here. It's not fair to as many who have sent it, but unfortunately, that's how Nana Abna Sewa, on her behalf, and myself, Eric, will be wrapping up the show with Dr. Clement Apak, MP for Busa South. Doc, thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure.
You have enriched the program, and of course, Kwesi Kwateng, thank you for making the time. One of the text messages I was about to read actually said, you sound very, very eloquent. Thank you for your time.
I'm humbled.
Be proud.
Thank you. I'm humbled.
Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.